Since the start of Russia's war in Ukraine, Russia has stolen hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Ukrainian grain and has shipped it to the Middle East, where it's ending up in popular food products. While Russia has denied that it's stolen any grain, the Associated Press and Frontline documented a complex Russian smuggling network far larger and more lucrative than previously known. And we found a trail that leads to some friends and allies of President Vladimir Putin. We analyzed radio transponder data and satellite imagery and obtained exclusive video to piece together the movements of more than 36 ships. We reviewed documents and interviewed company officials to trace the flow of grain to Turkey, Lebanon, and Syria. The theft of grain and destruction of agricultural facilities could both be potential war crimes under international law. To show how the smuggling operation works, we're going to focus on 3 ships: the Mikhail Nanashev, Fedor, and Laodicea. The Mikhail Nanashev was purchased shortly before the war by a Russian state-owned defense contractor. That company has been sanctioned for providing naval weapons used against Ukraine. Exclusive video shows the ship unloading grain on June 25th at a mill in Turkey that processes steel, not grain. The mill, MMK Metallurgy, is owned by Viktor Razhnikov, a Russian oligarch sanctioned by the US government because of his close ties to Putin. Razhnikov has an estimated net worth of more than $10 billion and owns one of the world's largest superyachts. One way Russia has been able to sell the grain is by claiming it came from its own ports, including Kavkaz, located in the Black Sea. That was the case with the Nanashev. In a statement to AP, MMK, the steel mill that got the shipment, said documents show the grain shipment came from the Kavkaz port. But here's why that can't be true. The Nanashev is far too big for the port. The port can only handle vessels with a maximum depth of 5.3 meters below the water. The Nanashev's draft is almost twice that. We also have satellite images showing the Nanashev on June 16th docked at a grain terminal in Sevastopol, Crimea, that Russia has occupied since 2014. Our investigation shows that the grain was hauled to the port by trucks and trains from parts of Ukraine that Russia invaded this year. Since March, the Nanashev has made at least 6 trips from Russian-occupied Ukraine to ports in Turkey and Syria. Another Russian-owned ship is the Fedor. Again, the Kavkaz was listed as the port of origin, but like the Nanashev, it's too big for this Russian port. Satellite images show it was also loaded with grain in Sevastopol. After the Fedor arrived in Bandırma, Turkey on June 17th, we looked into who was purchasing the grain. The buyer was a Turkish company, Yayla Agro, which sells packaged dried goods. Yayla Agro also bought corn from a different Russian ship. The company told the AP it had documents showing both shipments contained Russian grain and that it meticulously examines its commercial partners for any sanctions violations. Then there is a third ship, the Laodicea. This one belongs to a Syrian company that was sanctioned by the US for its ties to the regime of Bashar al-Assad, a close Russian ally. Kavkaz was also listed as the port of origin, but like the others, the ship is too big to dock there. The Laodicea's crew employed a tactic often used by smugglers, known as running dark, to hide their movements. After it left Turkey, the radio transponder stopped transmitting on July 7th in the Black Sea. We found it 4 days later, being loaded with grain in Feodosia, Crimea. You can see the trucks lined up at the dock. The ship doesn't turn on its transponder again until July 21st, when it's more than 170 miles south of the Crimean port. The ship eventually docks in North Lebanon on July 27th. The manifest obtained by AP listed 10,000 tons of Russian wheat, barley, and flour. Turkish wholesale grocer Loyal Agro, which purchased the grain, said it was assured the shipment came from Russia. In August, Ukraine began exporting its grain under a UN-brokered deal. But the smuggling has continued from occupied parts of Ukraine. And Russia isn't just loading grain at ports. It's also happening out in the Black Sea, between Crimea and Russia. Satellite imagery shows smaller boats coming from Russia and occupied Ukraine pull up next to larger cargo ships and transfer grain on board. We followed those ships going to the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. But once Ukrainian and Russian grain gets mixed, it further hides the true origin. All told, we traced more than 50 shipments of grain that on the open market could total up to about $500 million. That's cash that's helping to feed Russia's war machine.